Good morning, friends. Welcome to Empty Cloud Monastery. I am Aya Soma. I'm here with Aya Sudina, a senior bhikkhuni originally from Sri Lanka, who is currently residing at the South Carolina Vihara, correct? Aya? All right. So Venerable is visiting Empty Cloud, and she will be sharing with us some reflections on the Vipalla Sutta in Anguttara Nikaya 449. And you can find the link in the live chat. And at any time, feel free to ask any questions that you might have. And hello to Geeta, Aaron. Thank you, Geeta, for remembering. Hello to Kyle and Robin and everyone else who is watching. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Venerable Sudina so she can share the Dhamma this morning with us. Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Friends, so today we will be discussing a sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya. Yesterday it was from the Samyutta, isn't it, sir? Yeah. So today we'll be discussing one from the Anguttara Nikaya, and I think it's a very apt one because we are all the time thinking of the non-reality when we see something. So it is called the Vipallasa Sutta, or the discourse on inversions, right? So Vipallasa, the Buddha points out that all of us human beings have turned upside down our perceptions, thoughts, and views, so that we take what is impermanent to be permanent, the painful to be pleasurable, what is not self to be self, and the unattractive to be attractive. So when the Buddha shows their mistake, wise people are able to see the reality and overcome suffering. You see, because of our wrong perception, that we suffer. We don't realize it, but that is the truth. So this is actually a great eye opener, this sutta. So Vipallasa, when you take the word, means specially in a bad sense, inversion, perversion, derangement, corruption, and distortion. See, so these distortions or perversions, Vipallasa, that is the meaning of Vipallasa, of the mind. You see, it's not of the body, but of the mind. Of course, the body is there, but it's the mind that creates all the problems, isn't that so? So, of the mind, grab something of experience, right? Our experience, the mind grabs it and changes it by laying over it our own memories, hopes, and notions, hiding the true reality of things. This is not due to any intrinsic flaw in our nature, right? Don't think that we are flawed or something like that. But it's our attempt to make sense of the world outside, right? So, you know that we are not, we don't have the correct attitude when we are born. So as we go on, you know, growing up, maturing, we try to understand the world. So that is why we make all these mistakes. So we do not see that our experience has been distorted and interpreted wrongly due to our ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. Not only that, also there is lobha or craving, dosa or ill will, and moha or ignorance, it's also delusion, that underlie our life, and dependent origination, that is the cause and effect that we talked about yesterday. So, and the arising and passing away of things. We are not aware of these things, right? We don't know these things. And therefore, we make all these mistakes. We only see what we want to see, hear what we want to hear, sense only what we want to sense, and know only what we want to know. If you think about your own mind, you will see that this is the way that we really go about doing things, right? So, without the Buddha's teaching, we would never have known that our views of reality are distorted and we have deviated from the truth. So, you can see what a great teacher the Buddha is. And that is why we bow down to the Buddha and, you know, we pay respect. There are 3 levels of perversions. The first one is the perversion of perception. That is called sanya vipallasa. You know, sanya is perception. So, sanya vipallasa. It is here, here that all the rest of the problems have their origin, you see, because of our wrong perception. The perversion, the second one is the perversion of thought, chitta vipallasa. It comes next. It is chitta or mind that becomes fully aware and reflects and develops and expands on the object. The object is what we see through the see or you know, experience through the senses, not only eye but, you know, ear, nose, tongue, and so forth. The object is what comes into focus to any of those senses, right? The third one is, the third perversion is the perversion of view, that is called ditti vipallasa, right? Which transforms the thought into a definite theory. For example, right? Now, if you see a coiled rope in the dark, you take it for a snake. I mean, that is the normal perception that we have of a snake, right? Now, we can see how we are stuck in a view. So that is why, because of our, you know, view that we have of anything that is long like that is a snake. We can see, you see, these are 3 cyclical and build upon each other to create a personality. Now, these three things that I talked about, Sanya Vipallasa, Chitta Vipallasa, and Ditti Vipallasa, the three perversions, they go cyclically so that we become a personality and we think of others also as such. When chitta or thought is joined with ditti or view, perception, sanya too, is included, right? Perception is not, absent. And all of them are perverted by wrong view. Now, that is why Buddha says that all these putujjanas are, putujjana means all those who are not enlightened, have wrong view, right? Each level of perversion see things in 4 wrong ways, right? There are 4 wrong ways in which people think. Now, I talked about them earlier. That is, what is impermanent is taken to be permanent, right? Now, we know that we are going to die, but still we go on thinking, oh, that is a long way off. So we could, do whatever we want, drink or take drugs or, do all the things that we want to do, thinking that that is enjoyment. Anyway, and that is going to bring happiness to us. So what is impermanent is taken to be permanent. What is painful is taken to be pleasurable. What is not self is taken to be self. What is impure is taken to be pure. So, actually, the first 3, that is impermanence, painful, and non-self, right? Those 3 can apply to all conditioned phenomena, all conditioned things, right? That arise due to conditions. That means when the conditions are over or ended, they also will end. You understand that, I think. So, but the 4th perversion, that is impurity, we talked about impurity, is specifically about the body, for it is held on to with lust and sensual desire, right? So, now that we'll take these in order, right? The first one, that is anicca as nicca, impermanent as permanent, right? Can be seen at 3 levels. That is, the broadest level is, that is one of them, the broadest one, then general and minutest. Those are the 3 levels. Now, at the broadest level, we learn that even the universe, right? The universe is subject to change, though we think of it as permanent, right? So we take the Buddha's word as true, that he has seen many eons, many eons, that the world has changed and many worlds have come out, So Buddha teaches that it also expands, contracts, and finally disintegrates, right? So that is the idea, or the word of the Buddha that we take to be correct. Though we think that the sun is everlasting, millions of years later it will also disappear. There will be another sun, perhaps, you see. So on the general level, now there were 3 levels I talked about. On the general level, we can see impermanence in the change of seasons. The body, the material form, or the 5 aggregates that we we talked about, the five aggregates are the body, feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness, right? So these are constantly arising and falling. Each aggregate has an arising, stays a while, but even while staying, just for a, just a little bit, right? It changes. It's not there exactly the same, right? So, and then it vanishes, never to return, right? It doesn't return again. We see impermanence in our own life. We can see it, for there is a birth, a gradual growth, then a decline, and old age, and finally passing away. If observant, mindful, through meditation, we'll see the moment by moment arising, staying a second, or actually changing, breaking up, and vanishing. Do you know where you could see it? In the breath, right? In the breath. Now, that is why the Buddha has taken this breath as the meditation subject. Even for him to become the Buddha, to awaken, it was the breath that helped him. So, why not, why don't we take it and, use it? So, the in-breath starting, then staying a little while, or changing, coming to an end, and the vanishing. Then a slight pause. Have you noticed the slight pause in between? And the out breath following the same pattern. As we are unobservant, we do not see how everything is not in our control, though we talk of I and mine about all things. Even this body is not mine. There is no I. But we talk about it, right? And we think it is so. We think that the whole world is under our control. So that is why US is trying to control the whole world, right? So, and we are the masters. It is this notion that creates so much confusion and suffering, not only to individuals, but also to the whole world. So that is the first perversion, right? Anicca as nicca, impermanent as permanent. The next perversion is taking what is dukkha or painful as sukha or pleasurable. If we carefully observe, we'll see that every experience has some sense of dukkha or pain. Now see, you are seated now. How many times have you changed after sitting? Right? So that is the way it is. Pain is something that comes. So we cling to life, seeking happiness. And each time that a pleasant feeling comes, we think we could hold on to it. But it evades our grasp and causes us pain. Dukkha or suffering is both mental and physical. Because of asava or underlying tendencies. Now, I might say a few words about asava. These are actually biases, right? Biases, good or bad. Usually it's bad, right? Or corruptions we have gathered from our past births. Those are the asavas. So if you want, you can ask me later and I will explain a little bit more, right? So, and because of these asavas or underlying tendencies, now that means they are not always on the surface. They are underlying tendencies, right? So, grasping the 5 aggregates cause dukkha because we grasp the 5 aggregates. That is suffering caused by being born through one's former karma, right? We are born because of our earlier karma. Through rebirth, illness of body, bodily discomfort, hunger, mental distress, by death of one's beloved or friends, loss of personal belongings, caused by change. All this is caused because of change, right? Worldly pleasure can become suffering later. How many times have we, looking at a drama or whatever, a TV show or something, cried? Especially women, we cry at the slightest thing. So when we see that, why is that? Because we become part of it, right? So that we start crying. Now, can you see the pain? It's for pleasure that we look at it, but ends in pain. So anyway, worldly pleasure can become suffering later. Whatever we experience through the 6 doors, the 6 doors are the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and so on, falls away immediately. Comes, immediately it goes away. And this is dukkha. Accumulation of evil is also dukkha, as it is a cause of pain later, maybe in this life or in a later life. The Buddha told, now this is the story I told you yesterday, Nakulapita. Nakulapita was an old man who was very fond of the Buddha. Do you know why? Because the Buddha, as a bodhisattva, for 500 years had been Nakula Mata and Nakula Pita's son, right? So one day when the Buddha was going on his alms round, these two came together. These two came quickly and worshipped the Buddha and said, my son, where have you been all this time? And calling him son. So later when Nirmalananda asked, we all know that you are Suddha and Mahamaya's son. Why did those two call you son? Then the Buddha said, I was at least as a bodhisattva, I was born 500 times as their son. So anyway, then the Buddha told Nakulapita, now he had both physical as well as mental pain, not to worry and suffer mentally when physical pain arises, for that brings 2 kinds of suffering. We should be aware of our condition, that is, the body and mind are impermanent. And in our daily experience, we can see and feel this if we are mindful. I have found this very, very, very useful, that I try my best to keep the body and the mind, as 2 things, so that when there is pain, now when I'm seated like this, maybe there might be pain. So I think it's the body. The body has nothing to do with this pain actually. Where does this pain come from? It's the mind. The mind is working, and telling you are getting pain, But actually the body is nothing. It's like a log, like this, right? So if you think of it like that, then you can bear it up and just give it a try and see. Anyway, when you are mindful, you see, then we will not be stressed or worried when change happens. Our relations between people and communities too would become more harmonious. You see, we can see dukkha through other beings like animals. Of all the beings living in this planet, the ones that experience the greatest suffering are the animals. They are killed, hunted, tortured, and humans think they can be used for the well-being of humanity in any way they like. I think that's a very great tragedy. So the perversion, now we come to the next one, of taking what is not self as self. That is anatta as atta. For example, the 5 aggregates as self. Because we fear death, we hope there is something everlasting, permanent, that remain after death, which would provide bliss in heaven. All the, except the Buddhists, all the others are going to heaven or, of course, to hell, right? So, the idea of anatta, no self, does not mean that in the ordinary sense, the individual's existence is only an imaginary one. There was one teacher during the Buddha's time who said, even if you kill all the people, in the Ganges Valley or wherever they were, with a sword or with a knife or something, you are just, putting the knife or the sword through the 4 elements. That's all. There is no good or bad about it, no karma. So there were people like that, and maybe even today, who think like that. So it's not so. There is there is something here, at least the 4 elements, and that when we take as self, that is how we make the karma. So what anatta means is that there is no inner core in the individual. As long as we cling to this idea of self, we cannot eradicate our defilements, right? So that is why it's very important. Anicca, dukkha, anatta, all 3 are equally important. If we do not have the right view of nama, rupa, mind and body, we'll go on thinking of our aggregates, the body and mind, as well as others' aggregates as persons. This is why when someone dear dies or, passes away, we suffer so much. According to the commentary, there is craving in the thought, this is mine. In the thought, I am this, I am this, I am Sudinna, I am so and so, right? I am Bhikkhuni, whatever, right? In that thought, there is conceit. And in the thought, this is myself, there is wrong view. So can you see the 3 ways of thinking? All these ways of thinking occur in our daily life. All the time we are making these mistakes. We may think of being of a certain nationality, race, status in society, or having such an education with craving. The racial bias that we can see in many countries can be due to distorted perceptions. This could create much distress due to ignorance. The Buddha calls them knots, K-N-O-T-S, that block free thinking. Racism is a painful obstacle that divides human beings into inferior and superior due to color, habits, education, etc. This attitude only makes for divisions, misery, suffering, and of course, bad karma. In the end, those who, perpetrate all those ideas get bad karma. They don't realize it, you see. Okay, now we come to the fourth perversion. That is taking what is impure as pure. In the Buddha's teaching of Satipatthana, you know Satipatthana, I hope, the discourse on mindfulness, the first mindfulness training is about the body, because all of us cling to the body. We take care of the body, beautify it, and adorn it, thinking, my body. That doesn't mean that you must not clean it, right? My body, in the section on repulsiveness of the body, we are reminded that we take as beautiful, what we take as beautiful, you see, consists of rupa, body, elements, actually, you see, the four elements, which are not beautiful, but impermanent and do not form a self. You see, they are like all the other elements outside. The Buddha has taught us to overcome the perversion, but that can be done gradually. I think yesterday we were talking about this gradual training, not in the same words, but it was the same thing. So, can be done gradually, for insight has to be developed. The characteristics of nama and rupa, that is, mind and body, should be known as they really are when they appear. At the first stage, we will be able to distinguish nama from rupa. The awareness of a particular rupa, that is materiality, right? Rupa is materiality, may be well seen, but we may not become aware of the nama or mentality which experiences them. Now see the difference. The rupa is the, is the one that we activate, but what actually activates it is the nama, right? The mentality. But we don't see it. We think it is the rupa that is doing all the work. For example, in the walking meditation, with every movement of the feet, there is also a noting mind. As Ajahn Chah called it, a knower. Ajahn Chah called it a knower, right? There is a lifting of the foot. Then the mind is aware of that lifting, that you are lifting the foot, right? In the next moment, there is a forward move of the foot, right? When you are walking, forward move of the foot. And the mind is again aware of it, that you are moving the foot. The individual will also realize that both the movement as well as the awareness rise and disappear in that moment. As soon as it happens, it disappears. Then the next movement happens, right? And the next mentality. In the next moment, there is the putting down and the awareness of it, right? So that now the walking can be done with 2 steps or 3 steps or 4 steps or 5 steps, depending on your awareness. So again, the pressing down of that foot and that awareness, the individual will realize that the movement as well as the awareness arise and disappear at that moment. In this way, the individual will realize that every movement, with every movement, there is also an awareness of it. That is, if we are mindful. If you are not mindful, if you are just walking, thinking about something else, then of course we won't become aware of it, right? So the movement's awareness is what is termed nama. The movement and the awareness of it is called the nama. And the movement of the foot is rupa or matter. So if we are mindful, we'll realize the arising and vanishing of mind and matter. The individual will also see the part played by intention when there is movement. This is conditionality, or they happen due to a cause and condition. This is a discovery made by the individual if one is fully aware and open to reality. So this is the way that we can, become aware of the reality of things. This is the way also to understand cause and effect. One begins to realize that nama and rupa arise due to conditions. This is the way to attain sotapanna or stream entry. Do you want to become stream enterers? I'm sure you all do, right? You all do. So anyway, because you see now when that happens, we can get rid of 3 of our defilements. What are the 3 defilements? Sakkaya Ditti, Vichikiccha, Silabbata Paramasa. Sakkaya Ditti means this idea or notion of self. Then the doubt about everything, right? Especially the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and so on. Yeah. Third one is Silabbata Paramasa is, thinking that rites and rituals can liberate us, right? So, in other words, we begin to see impermanence in our actions and thoughts. When we add meditation to our daily routine, we'll be able to see the truth in our lives. Right understanding results from listening to the Dhamma. This develops right mindfulness. The mindfulness helps to be aware of nama and rupa. Other good qualities like loving kindness, generosity, and patience too help to weaken the clinging to self. What we have to do is to constantly remind ourselves that everything, sensuous pleasure, wealth, relations, power, and status are impermanent, painful, not self, and impure. When we become aware of them in this way, we begin to realize what they really are. They can be good servants until we outgrow all desire for them, but bad masters. So we should find a higher and more spiritual happiness May all of us be able to attain total purification in this life itself. Thank you.
Dhamayang Dhammakataya Sarukarang Dadamase
Sadhu, 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 anumodami.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you so much, Venerable, for sharing the Dhamma with us once again. And there's many thank yous from our friends online.
Are there questions also?
Yes, there is. So Manjula says, mindfulness on each as every action we do and bodily functions such as the breath in and out through Satipatthana will help us to attain noble stages of Buddha Sasana, I think. The teaching of the Buddha. I think this is more of a comment.
Yes, more of a comment, yeah.
And actually there's just, Jill says, is there clinging to rites and rituals if we feel like we always must bow, chant, live, and practice in certain ways?
This is a question that is asked there too. But actually, the Buddha himself has said certain things about, rites and rituals. During his time, there were many other believers who, behaved like, some of them behaved like cows, going on all fours. Some behaved like dogs, and some of them had all other kinds of ideas. They're like, as I mentioned earlier, about, that there is no karma and so on and so forth. So those are the things that the Buddha was talking about when he talked about rites and rituals, not really the, placing some flowers in front of the Buddha statue, or lighting an incense stick, or lighting a candle, because the idea behind it is quite different. Now, when we keep the flowers in front of the Buddha, we say, Pujemi Buddhang kusumena nena, punyena etena chahotu mukkang. Puppang milayati yatai dhamme, kayo tatayati vinasa bhavang. We compare the flowers. Now they are so beautiful, fresh, fragrant, and we are offering these flowers to the Buddha as our showing of respect to the Buddha, as a mark of respect. But at the same time, in the next two lines, what is said is, just as these flowers, a little while later will wilt and go bad or decay, our bodies too will decay. Kayo tatayati vinaso bhavang. So that is the idea behind it. So that it is not a rite or ritual, but a meditative concept, right? Perception that we think, maybe that we all don't think of it at that time, but we have to think of it in those terms. So with the lighting a candle, why do we light a candle in front of the Buddha statue? Because we are paying respect to his knowledge, right? His great awakening. Now he himself says, Aloko Udapadi. I think you have come across the word Aloko Udapadi in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So light arose, he says. So that is why we are lighting the candle to respect him. So when we think of these things, there are many things that we do, which other believers might think are rituals. They are not rituals. They are part of the Dhamma that we practice. And another thing is, I have found that there are certain people who cannot be like, you in the sense that now you have left your homes, come here in order to practice, in order to meditate, in order to be silent, right? But there are many others who cannot do so, and they are still, like the Buddha talking about the lotuses, those that have come up from the water, those that are still on the water, those that are still in the water and right in the mud. So there are like that people with a little dust in their eyes, with much dust in their eyes, and with totally covered, the eyes are totally covered with dust. So for those people, at least lighting a candle or keeping some flowers in front of the Buddha statue can, give them some idea of the Dhamma. So therefore, it may be an awakening for them to, go forward in the path. That is how I look at it. I don't know whether it is the correct way of looking at it, but that is how I think of these things that we do, that others may think as rites and rituals. Any other?
Thank you so much. There's not online any questions, but maybe from our people here.
When someone gives a talk, if you ask questions, that means you have understood, and we know that you have understood. If you don't ask questions, that means we don't know whether you have understood or not. So if you have anything, even if it's a small question, it's okay. If you have understood, well and good, it's okay, even if you don't ask questions.
Aya, can you give some practical examples of how to see suffering as suffering? So in our day-to-day life.
The thing is, Aya, now suffering is something that we cause ourselves, right? Because now there may be pain. Now, actually, I'm feeling a little bit of pain, but that is not suffering, because if I think of it as suffering, then it becomes suffering. In the same way, suffering, normally suffering is something to do with the mind. It's nothing to do with the body, though the tears come and then we show the suffering through our body by crying and shouting out and breathing the breast and doing all those things. But actually the suffering is caused in the mind. So as I said earlier, if we separate the mind and the body as nama rupa, then we could alleviate the suffering too, by thinking this has nothing to do with this, actually, though the mind is telling me this, right? And therefore I don't have to worry about it so much. And now if it is a pain, actual pain that you feel, if you divide it in that way, then you can just forget about it and go on with now I'm talking of being in meditation. Now there is pain, right? So when pain comes, it's very difficult to stay in that position, right? Because we have not come up to samadhi, right? If it was samadhi, we won't feel it. But if that means samadhi means that you have attained that level of concentration, so that you don't have to worry about the pain. The pain you don't feel it. But if you have not come up to that, then when the pain happens, if we think of it in those terms, that it is the body, I don't have to worry about it. The mind may tell me that there is a pain, but I am going to concentrate on the breath and go on concentrating on the breath. Then the object is different, right? Otherwise, now if you take the object as the pain, then it might be more difficult.
Thank you, Aya. What about things that we perceive as pleasant? So seeing the dukkha in the sukha.
So if we take material things as pleasant, they will always be different. They will always change. But if we take the spiritual things as pleasant, now that is why the Buddha calls it the higher happiness, because all these other things that we think are pleasant and we collect and we have them around us, they will change. So when they change, the pleasantness goes, the happiness goes, and we become, we suffer or we become unhappy. But when it is the spiritual, then it's different. But the spiritual happiness too can bring unhappiness. Why? Because now I want to become, I want to attain samadhi. And here I'm trying and trying and trying, but still the samadhi has not come, I'm still not able to attain samadhi. Then there is the spiritual unhappiness, right? But supposing I do get the samadhi at that time, then there is that pleasantness, the happiness. And when that happiness comes, it is a very innocent kind of happiness. And it's a good happiness, as the Buddha has said, right? So even the happiness or the pleasantness is of two kinds, the mundane and the spiritual.
Thank you so much, Aya. And Naval asks, can you explain how the awareness while walking meditation also arises and disappears?
Now, now as you start the walking, you have to start by standing, right? Stand. And then be aware that you are standing. Look at the whole body, the outline of the body as it is standing there. The feet on the ground, the two hands on the sides, or maybe when you start to walk, you will have the hands together in front or at the back, and be aware of the whole figure, mindful. Now, of course, the mind will not stay in the same way. Even if you start like that, it'll wander about. You might see the trees and so on. That is why the Buddha has said to keep the eyes on the ground, but not on the feet as such, but on the ground, a little away from the body, right? And you look at that place and keep your eyes on that, so that you don't go astray. And also you have 2 points where you walk, or it may be a circular one, whatever the limit of the walk, right? It shouldn't be too long, it shouldn't be too short also. And then when you start walking, now when you start walking, you are standing, and when you start walking, you are aware that you are going to walk. You are going to walk, right? And then you stretch your foot. That is, first of all, you lift your foot, right? Then you are lifting the foot. Of course, there are other many other things of the elements and the air and all. I'm not going into all that. You lift the foot, then you stretch it, and then you are aware of the stretching, and then again you place it, you put it down, then you press down on the ground, and then you are aware of all that. Then you can go to the next one. So that is how you become aware of the movement and keep the awareness bright without letting it go, right? Then only that you can keep the nama and rupa together. That is why we do the breath meditation. So now Bhante Ji of course gives the walking meditation along with breath, but it is okay just to concentrate on the movement, because the movement alone, if you just move without awareness, then the mindfulness has gone. So to keep the mindfulness there, you have to be aware of the movements of the body. Okay.
Great, thank you. And Anita asks, Aya, can you elaborate on some examples of taking not self as not self, please?
Self as not self?
Not self as not self. So fundamentally,
That's
once
a little bit confusing. What would you say, Bhante?
Like I think it's the opposite. So in the sutta, the Buddha says that distortion of mind is to take a not self as self, and the correct way is to
take not self as not self.
Correct, yes.
I think just asking how to practice the perception of not self. I think that's what they're asking. How to practice anatta sanya, the perception of not self.
Yeah. It's a little confusing for me the way it is put. Not self. Yeah. How would you practice? You know, what would you say, Bhante? Can you tell me some more about it?
I think things like going through the body and seeing each part is not me. Like the hair is not me, the skin is not me, the eye is not me, the nose is not me.
Like what Anathapindika was told.
Yeah.
In the Anathapindika Sutta, in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Venerable Sariputta talks about it. That is, he says, he starts with the 5 aggregates first. Each aggregate is not self, right? This is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. Each aggregate. And then go on to the next one, that is the consciousness. The consciousness, the object of the consciousness. Each one is taken separately, and say, this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. So like that, go on, and then you go through the whole thing, and then that means at the end of it, that is why Anathapindika was so moved. At the end of it, you realize actually there is nothing. But in Sri Lanka, there is another way of doing it also, that is through the impurities. The impurities of the body. There are now 32 impurities. I remember when I first started meditation, long ago, when I that meditation master used to give this one. That is, say you start with now the head hair, right? Then the body hair, then the nails, the teeth, the skin, the flesh, like that, all the parts of the body. You take each one and place in front of you, right? Place in front of you. The head hair, you think of it as, something that you can take out and then put in front of you. The other one, the next one, the next one. In the end, there is nothing left here, right? So that is not self. If it was self, there must be something here, right? When you keep all these things here. So that was also a very effective way of, doing it. You do 2 things at the same time. That is looking at the impurities and also about non-self.
Sadhu. Thank you so much, Aya. And Gita asks, Aya, even the meditative attainments are impermanent. How can one extend the bliss? Is it through constant and steady practice?
Can you please repeat it again?
Even the meditative attainments are impermanent. So how can one extend the bliss? Is it through constant and steady practice?
I suppose so, because as everything is impermanent, yes, true, it is. Now, you know the simile of the raft, right? The Buddha says you go from one shore to the other, making a raft, and then you either threw away the raft into the water or tie it up. You don't carry it on your shoulder. In the same way, even the Dhamma, the Buddha says, you use it to go across to the other shore, but you don't carry it along on your head or something. So therefore, each now, and also even if the jhanas, now you attain jhanas, say the jhanas are not permanent. Now this time, now when you are seated and meditating, you might attain the first jhana, second jhana, maybe you go up to the fourth jhana, but still when you get up, all those jhanas will also disappear. You have to start again the next time you sit down and attain, but it might be quicker because you have already attained, and then you know how to do it. And it's not a case of you're doing it, it is something that happens, right, through the meditation, right? It's not I am not doing it, you're not doing it, it just happens. So it happens when you sit down the next time, maybe easier, but each time it has to be with effort. Samma virya.
Thank you so much, Aya. And that was the last question, unless there's something else that is bubbling in people's minds. All right, so I think that's all for this morning, but we will be meeting again with Aya Sudina and a few other monastics this evening on a panel discussion on karma. Big topic. And tomorrow again at 8 a.m. New York City time, Aya will be sharing more words of Dhamma, another sutta study. And in the evening tomorrow we'll have monk chat. So anything that is not related to the current topics and you have questions about, you can bring them tomorrow evening. And if you're around Empty Cloud Monastery this weekend, Aya Sudina will be also sharing some Dhamma, both Saturday and Sunday. In person, you'll have the opportunity to meet her. So many good opportunities to make merit. So we can end the morning with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you all be well and happy.
Thank you all.
Thank you.